yesterday, presentations, and today we can now relax and listen to a lineup of impressive speakers this morning, brought to you especially for Mention 2021 conference. Continuing from Professor Emeritus Dr. Vincent Mosco earlier on the political economy of digital media in the new norm, what we will bring what we will be discussing in this 1.5 hour plenary session is to unpack also a very interesting topic, which is media and communications working in the new norm. Ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 has left its mark on almost all industry, and this includes the media and creative industry. Whether specializing in journalism, advertising, film, broadcasting, or digital media, people in the industry had to quickly adapt to the changing reality of today to continue operate and sustain their businesses. The disruption from the pandemic turned the faucet of change and shifted based on audience and customer behavior, where viewers now held the power and control over media delivery and content production, and their demand churning the industry ecosystem. We now also see new ways of working in the media industry, where technology and internet became our main way of medium of communication. In the media industry, consumers are constantly demanding diversity in not only its content options, but also the media of where in which they obtain the information from. So the media industry has to adapt to its digital consumers, shifting their traditional medium to the digitalized on-demand options and services. The new norm is dependent on 24/7 connectivity. So building on the culture of agility through different ways of working, new ways of working, is going to be very increasingly important. And there will be an emphasis on flexibility as companies need to remain agile during these challenging times. So today's topic is going to be sharing about what media and communication has changed in the past 1.5 years, and discussing about working in a new norm with our three esteemed panelists. I would like to first welcome all three panelists here today. We are very lucky, everybody, that we have three very important speakers, one from the academia and two from the industry. Let me just first introduce everybody to our speakers. We have first panelist, Professor Emeritus Dr. Samsudin Rahim. Prof. Sam, fondly known as Prof. Sam, he is an alumnus from UKM. He was actually from Mention self, and I'm actually sitting in his office, used to be his office. Prof. Sam has served in different departments. He has served as the head of Mention before. He has also been our Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities in UKM. He was also the director of Youth Empowerment Center, and he was awarded as a visiting fellowship at the Nordic Institute for Asian Studies in Copenhagen and the International Institute for Asian Studies in Leiden. Professor Sam was conferred Emeritus Professor by UKM as an appreciation for his services and contribution in the area of communication and media studies. So welcome, Prof. Sam, to our plenary session of Mention 2021 conference. We also have two more lady speakers, women empowerment, here in our plenary session this morning. None other than Datin Paduka Shuhaimi Baba. I think all of us here are familiar with her face and her work. Datin Paduka Shuhaimi Baba is an award-winning film director, producer, and scriptwriter. He's the founder and managing director of pesonapictures in Berhad. And we know Datin Paduka has received many awards in filmmaking, cinematography, music scores, and others. And she has directed, produced so many films, popular films in the past. I think I still remember when I was younger, I was watching Selubong, Ringgit Kasorga. I still use the words and the terms that has been used, the dialogues that has been used in those films. Recently with Tanda Putra, Datin Paduka, we all admire your work, and we hope that I'm sure there's going to be a lot of inputs that you are going to share with us later today in the session. So welcome, Datin Paduka. And next, our third panelist, a young blood here among us, Miss Sara Nattaya Azmi. So Ms. Sara Nattaya is the founder of MBits Digital, Sdn Bhd. So MBits Digital is a digital disruptor company which offers digital connectivity, digital telecom media, as well as digital broadcasting. Is that right? Play, live, and move. Yeah. And Sarah has a passion in globalizing contents and creating more opportunities for creative industry while making digital services such as mobile connectivity and fiber to home with IoT affordable and accessible to the masses. Ms. Sara Nattaya also received recognition as Women Empowerment Principal. She's fluent in many languages, in Bahasa Melayu, English, French, and Chinese with 3 dialects. Okay, so very multicultural personality we have here, and I think what all our 3 panelists will bring to us today is a very engaging discussions under the theme that we have prepared or we have selected, which is working in the new norm. And I'm sure Prof Sam, Datin Paduka, as well as Sara has a lot to share from their own experiences in the past year, what have changed, what is interesting, what is to be expected in the next 2 or 3 years ahead with all the changes that have been happening. Before we start, I'd just like to inform everybody in terms of the format of this plenary session. What we'll do is I'll invite all the 3 panelists to start off with a 10-minute introduction of the theme, working in the new norm. And then after that, we'll continue with roundtable discussions. I've prepared a few questions for you all to discuss together. We also have a very interesting discussion. And after that, we will open the floor for Q&A from the audiences. I'm sure everybody here is I have a lot to ask from our esteemed panelists. So without further ado, maybe I will first start by inviting Prof Sam. Would you like to go first, Prof Sam?
Let me give the floor to Datin Paduka.
Okay, all right. Datin Paduka, looks like Prof Sam is passing the baton to you. So if you don't mind, Datin Paduka, would you like to start the session?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, very clear.
All right, thank you. Assalamualaikum, and thank you for inviting me. I thought I was really waiting for Prof to start talking because I wanted to hear from Prof, but okay, I'll contribute what I can. Excuse me, because I've just been recovering from a really bad flu and cough, so I'll get some interruption in between. I just want to share what happened in my industry, which probably other industries also went through the same thing. One was a loss of opportunity, loss of projects went down the drain. A lot of us, many of us lost money in that because of the lockdown. Investors walked away from us. We can't blame them. And like each film, there's about 150 people, 50 people minimum are being employed. So when there's no work, the amount of unemployment went up very high, and it was, well, so to put it simply, we were crippled. The industry was crippled. But it forced us to find new ways of survival. One of it was people who are in the writers' room, the writers. We managed to continue because of there's Zoom, there's Google Meet, there's Duo. So discussion and development, ideation survived during that time. But what a big project, big films that people were waiting for, that well, you can imagine that a big film, you spend about 7 million, 5 million, and that's like on the waiting block. 30 films right now are waiting to be screened, and the cinemas are still operating at 30–50%. So you can imagine the kind of losses that we're all going through. And then some of us had to abandon our projects, even though we had spent money, we've paid people. We cannot say, hey, hang on, you got to keep working for me. 3 months, yes. 1 year down the line, you can't hold them to their contract. It's just not fair for them. Not fair for us, but that's the way it was. We had to deal with it. But some of us were lucky in my case, because I was also working on a CGI 3D film. So it was totally virtual, and that could continue. But we had a problem because we have the size of the data size, the file size were big. We need to be near the mother server. But the individual designers, the artists, if they have to work from home, we had to provide them with about 2 to 4 terabyte of internal and external drives. That costs more money, even though we've already lost money. We have to invest some more, get all these drives for the artists. And even then, it's not enough, because you will have, like, when you render your visuals, they will crash because not enough, not strong enough. So it was like maddening, but that was the only work that we could continue with because it was virtual. So we were lucky in that sense. It slowed down everything by like 60%, 70%. We lost some of our artists. We had to spend more money. We lost money. All that thing was like, we were adjusting as we go along. You know, we weren't like really finding out. There was no central body that was studying the impact of the lockdown of COVID-19 on the industry. There was no study being done. How are we going to mitigate all these losses post-pandemic or right now? So there was nothing like that. So we were on our own. We have to find our way around. You have to survive. Basically, it was that. But yeah, when we were communicating with friends in UK, because we were quite surprised that they weren't going through a lockdown. Their industry was much bigger than ours. And how come they're not going through a lockdown? And in fact, they said that even the Hollywood production go down to UK to do their films because the industry was going on. So then we shared information on the different type of bubble system that they were doing. We had one bubble system. Everybody in that system, in that bubble, don't go out. If you go out, you got to do your test and you come back. But theirs was like several bubble in one big bubble, and it worked. And that's how they managed to keep their industry open. A few years ago, we were already working on a remote system of shooting, but it was like very small. That's because we're trying to save cost, and so we don't have to move around too much. But then we found out that during COVID, we realized that there is a system in that, and that our friends again in UK told us how it's being done. And while you can do remote shooting on smaller projects like a 2 minutes film, a one-person hosting, that was okay. But remote shooting for film, for drama with dialogues, needed a different system. And to do that, we have to spend more money. Okay, money was a real issue then, you know. So how the hell are we going to do this? But it was one way that could save the industry, because I could shoot a movie sequence from my office here in KL while the setting is in Melaka. We cannot travel to Melaka, tak boleh rentas negeri, and someone can do it for us over there. But it costs money because you have a system. You got to use your Mac Pro. You got to use your Atomos smart monitors. So those are items that cost money, but it made remote shooting possible. So that is something that is still like work in progress. And when it's ready, we're going to share this with friends, how we can all do this, so that if we have shooting in Jakarta or Yogyakarta, we can't go, We can shoot from here. We can have an assistant from there helping us to put the shots together. Our disadvantage here is that locally, because you need live streaming for remote shooting, you need a system that can deliver sub 1 second latency, and we don't have it here locally. You can see, like, even when TV station buat live interview, there's a delay, right? Delay, few seconds delay. You can see that. So to be able to get that sub 1 second latency, or avoid the lag time, you would have to pay international live streaming services. So in this case, like in the civil service in UK, when we were testing it, we had to pay about £400 per 6-8 hours. That's a lot of money if you're doing it every day, right? But because we were learning from them, that's what you have to spend. And that system can be used once we get everything finalized. Because when you do live streaming and you're directing remotely, when you communicate with people on the set, it has to be like almost real time, if not real time, but almost real time. Otherwise, you get all this feedback, actors listening to you, the technical people, lighting people listening to you, they need to hear you almost real time. So those are the system right now we are practicing, testing, enhancing, and hopefully that we can resolve the issue of the latency problem right now. If you are familiar with interview on live streaming on TV, you can see the delay. I think there's about like what 5-10 second delay around that time. So we have to move beyond that. So that's one thing that we've discovered, that there is life after all. With the lockdown, you can do this, but it takes time, and unfortunately, there's no like funds that can help you do this as an it's no longer an experiment. It's real. It can be done, but you know that to get all the stuff, all the equipment together costs us money. So we are doing it on our own. So it's a bit slow. So that's one thing. Then right now, because of this relax on the lockdown, we started working. But what we found out is that because of the SOP involved, it is costing us more. First, of course, the swab test before everybody gets on the set. 3 days before that, all swab tests must be done on everyone, right? Then as we progress, we realize that we cannot shoot. There's a limited hour to shoot, up to 12. So before that, you got to wrap line balik. We used to work like until 4 or 5 in the morning, right? So especially if you are shooting, it's a night scene, you start late and you finish the next morning. But now we can't do that. So we got to like, it's rayu upon rayu upon rayu to get an extended time to shoot lah. Rayu lah tak apalah, so as long as we get that extended time, you know. So that's one thing. And then of course, somebody else coming from another production, we have to know extra supporting actors when they come on the set. We need to get their records, like which production are you from? You got to do another swab test, even though you've done with them, you got to do it here before you come onto our set. So it delays a lot of things, but we have to go through it because someone from another production could have contracted COVID without them knowing it, right? So if you only know it, you delayed a few days. So, and that's happened in several productions. So what happened is that when we find someone who's contracted COVID, who's COVID positive, we have to stop work. But there's no mercy on rentals. The place that you rent, you stop work, you have to keep paying. So, you know, and so if you stop work for 10 days because of COVID, you have to pay for 10 days with no work done. So your cost goes up. So these are the things that is quite troubling for us because cost is already, funding is limited. So we have to overcome that. We have to, as they do, pandai-pandai lah, you know, you have to be able to resolve it and get around it and deliver. So the one thing that have helped a lot, I think, also is because working from home, there's a lot of advantage, but also the disadvantage. But we can have our meetings from home. So it can be any time. You just have to wake up. This is the time that we have. We have to have our meetings. We'll have to do it on Zoom. and that's one thing that's good. But there's another thing is that your internet line got to be stable, you know. So if you come somewhere where the internet line sucks, it's really terrible. And we have to when to share a video, it's the worst thing. You want to kill yourself because you know it just hang and hang. So that's the disadvantage. But a good thing is we are now getting used to the fact that you don't have to be in the office 24/7, 24 hours. You just need an office space to meet, and you can meet online. So that's good. I mean, I know that some of my staff, because of lockdown, because of MCO, some of the helpers have gone home, they've not come back, and they don't have people helping them. Now, these are real problems because they have children and where to send to go to office, you know. So it helped them that when we say, okay, you guys, you work from home and see how much you can manage with that, because they have to look after their children. And also because this has nothing to do with my industry, but yeah, I'll tell you anyway. Like my staff work from home, they have children, and the children go online, right? Classes online. Now they have only one laptop. They got 4 kids. No, so they cannot share the laptop, so they go on their handphone. So I cannot call them when they're on the handphone because they're using it for their children. So those kind of things, I wish the government would be able to help them more in that sense, so that you know, I don't know, free laptop, what? But this is real problem, not just for us, but everybody's facing that. So that's what we've discovered. Now the other thing is what has become like really good, which I don't think, I hope they will not change it, is pitching online. We used to have to go face-to-face pitching presentation, right? But now for the first stage, we can actually send our screeners, pitch our story online, and that cuts down a lot of unnecessary travel time, waiting time, queuing time. We go through that all the time. So this lockdown, COVID-19 has helped people understand that this is also important, that you don't need to call people face-to-face. You can do online pitching. You can do online presentation for the first stage, second stage. And final one, like maybe you don't like my face, okay, you can have a face-to-face and say, okay, I don't want to give you like I don't like the way you look. Okay. But today you gotta go and you have to have your mask on, right? And dulu, we used to be able to read people's expression, the body language. You say, alamak, I'm getting bored nih. I have to change my style or something. You know, you are able to read that. Now with their face and mask on, you have to say, hey, is she liking what I'm saying? Are they getting it or not? You can't see that anymore. You know. So okay, those are things that I think a real issue. They're not a problem. They're just human factor that now you got to learn to read people's body language and expression in a different way. So that is something that I share for now for my industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Datin Paduka. Yeah, I think you know, it has been very challenging for the film industry, especially with the lockdowns and unable to produce and shoot. And although the pre-production stage can go on, but the production stage is really suffering. And operations in terms of, you know, Persona Pictures and also other producing companies as well are you know, are not getting any help in terms of financially, and bearing the cost is a huge problem. How do you actually, I'm just wondering that, Paduka, how do you keep your motivations of your staff high? I mean, how does that work?
Well, I think the word depression was all over the place, and I could see it. And you know, we've had to make very tough decision, like whom do we want to keep, whom do we let go. And okay, so if you don't want me to let go anyone, we'll have to all take a pay cut. If we all agree, then we stay on. We've had to do things like that, and you know, and said this is the only way we can survive this until things get better. So I have to keep going, and so everybody can and hold everyone together, because it's not just me, our friends in the industry. One thing is good is that we're able to help each other. You know, the white flag thing, and the many of our crew, artists, senior artists, they were really in need of help, and the only people who could help them would be us. So we had to do it ourselves. We find ways on how we could help each other. One thing good that came out of all this is that people are more positive. people are more concerned and caring towards each other. That's what I found out, and from the communication, the messages we have, I realized that the ones that I thought would not be affected by it, by this lockdown, were also affected. And people at the end of the day were not afraid to share with you that they are in difficulty, and that is something that was something new for our industry, that the level of sharing was a lot.
Yeah, I do agree. I think we are seeing a lot, a kinder society. People who are not afraid to share, and this is something positive that has came out from COVID-19. I guess a more kinder society. Thank you very much, Datin Paduka, for your short sharing. So I would like to now offer Prof. Sam to continue. Probably, Prof. Sam, you okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Datin Paduka, for the opening remarks. This pandemic, COVID pandemic, is not something that we are familiar. We are warned about it's coming. It's just like the tsunami that hit Aceh. It's a big tsunami. So all of a sudden, we have to position ourselves to survive in the new environment. What Datin Paduka mentioned was survival. You have to do whatever you need to survive. So some of the things that we do might not be something that come from internalization, come from our heart, that we do, we make changes, but rather it was forced on us. Like flexi hours, you use new technologies. Just something that being forced on us, and like it or not, we have, in order to survive, we have to accommodate it. But the new normal, we can see the new normal when things we are going into the endemic period, where you can see whether these behavior, these changes can be sustained. Some of the changes will regress back to the mean. We regress back before pandemic. Like some people would like to work in the office, so they prefer to go back to the office because of socialization rather than staying at home. Besides working, you have to take care of the kids or kids around you. So we need to wait further in order to really see what's the new normal like. But we can predict some of the things that will be happening. Like those in the UK, they have this physical proximity measurement, meaning that those who work closely, like the clinical people, doctors and patients, they would prefer to be in the office. But those in, let's say, in production companies, like Datin Paduka mentioned just now, they have to be close together in order to produce an output, a film or what. So they need to be together in the office or in the studios. But those who do, let's say, provide technologies, they don't have to be in one place. So they would prefer to work from home, what they call it now as remote working situations. So it depends on the industry, it depends on the kind of jobs that you're doing, and the level of physical proximity measurement that will determine which industry will prosper with the new kind of arrangement or not. But does COVID pandemic really make what we call significant change? What are the changes that we observed during the pandemic now? Are they really the COVID pandemic really the antecedents, the cause of the changes? or it is just accelerating, just like using technology. We are in the post-digital era. Technology is there. We have invested in small technologies long time ago, maybe 5 years, maybe some 10 years in the information age. We already invested on a smaller scale, but now we need more. So it is just an acceleration. It is not a really transformation. It's acceleration. You bring changes that is supposed to really have an effect 5, 6, 7 years down the road. You bring it earlier now in 2020, 2021. So you are accelerating. You are not really making changes, but the situation forces you to speed up investment in technology. You know that you need to invest. Like in the media industry, there's a lot of technologies that have been invested that need to produce something which previously you can do without. Then with regard to, let's say, the demand, and during the pandemic, we can see certain kind of demand for streaming. That will be that will remain. I think the demand, if the industry can what you call tap into these potentials, because people realize there are more than what they are being offered now on terrestrial TV or what on cable TV. There's enough streaming, Netflix, whatever. So there's a potential for local production to be on the Netflix. You have international audience. Even companies in Europe are now expanding on the streaming content, because they see that streaming audience does not make languages as a barrier. It doesn't matter in what language. Previously, Malaysian audience will go for Hindustani film or Chinese film, and now Korean film, but now you can see Italian film, Turkish films. So there's a room for us. I think this trend is going to stay, the streaming kind of thing. And then you can see the what you call investment will be less, because for the past 2 years, industries are not making money. So there's a less money that can be invested into the industry. But it doesn't mean that less investment means less output. But being creative, you have to cut down certain. Obviously, there will be unemployment on a shorter period. You have to cut down your costs, operational costs, production costs. You need to lay off workers. But this will be happening. But I think after a few years, it will pick up again, because the industry is expanding, because the demand for the industry product is increasing. And moreover, after the pandemic, you can see people need to going back to their real self, so-called, because of a lot of this mental illness. People need to be more relaxed, and to motivate themselves. They need to be more casual, more inputs that need to distress them from this 2 years period that they have been experiencing. So I think that the money is, even though the investment, the money in the industry will be less, but and there will be cut downs in cost, production, and jobs, but ultimately there will be more. They will hire more people. There will be, as profit begins to come in, they can invest more in production, in human resource, this kind of, I think, the new normal. Then there's a trend in the media company. I think there will be some changes in the environment, how you make arrangement with regard to production, with regard to what we call your technological investment, and there will be a new setting, new trends. You can see new trends because you learn, like Paduka said just now. In future, many offices will have to do some pitching online. They don't have even conferences like this, which usually cost people to spend something like 10,000 to go to international seminar. Now you more or less you don't pay a single cent lah if you can get internet line from your office. So it costs a lot. So this trend might be good. You can hold 10 international conference. You can go to 10 international conference per year. Previously, you cannot, not even one. They allow you to go international conference once every 2 years maybe. And now it's a possibility. So this might not 100% you go online, but at least some of the conferences will be virtual like this. Obviously, flexible working hours will be there. But not everybody wants to work what they call flexi hours and work from home. Yeah. In UK, they did a survey. They found out that on the average, people would like to come to office at least twice, 2 days in a week, at least, to socialize, to update themselves, and then the rest of the days, 3 days in the week, they will be spending working from home. And cutting costs, I mentioned just now, because of operational costs and then rental, and they will do. Then investment in technology. There will be a lot of investment in technology because people know that technology will help. And this is the progression. This is the natural progression that you have to take, or else you'll be outdated in terms of your production capability and your competitiveness. You have to really, because the next step is this what do you call this technology with artificial intelligence. Metaverse is the next step that you will go into after the post digital era. That will be another story. So you have to catch up. This is a different ball game. You have to catch up in the industry. But as I said, changes need time to settle down, whether it's real change or it's artificial change or it's enforced change. Without good values, without good purpose, benefits, people will regress back to the mean. So whatever positive that you experience, you learn from this pandemic, you need to sustain. Sustain can be in terms of providing infrastructure. Just now, Datin Paduka mentioned. You need to provide them with bigger storage, internet facilities, or else they have to come to office because technology is not working effectively for them. So these are the things, the infrastructure, the changes that need to be supported by infrastructure. So infrastructure change must be there. Your attitude change must be there. So because you need to, it is not about the output. You need to make your workers to be happy, motivated, high in job satisfaction, less problem with mental health. These are the things that so you have to take care of human being. You're not taking care of robots in this situation. So I will stop for now, hoping that many of the good things that's happening right now will be continued as part of the new normal in the future endeavor.
Thank you very much, Prof. I do agree. I mean, at the end of the day, what matters are the humans. We ourselves, the people, and as social animals, as social beings, we still need to interact. We still need to see each other. So there might be some changes, in the way we work today as a result of COVID-19 and what the pandemic has, done to us. But we would probably still need to maintain certain things to just keep our mental health in check. and to keep our motivations high as workers. I mean, at the end of the day, we are the one who work in the industry. The industry is there, the technical things is there, the technology is there. But if we ourselves, the people who are operating it, are not, are not healthy, then it's going to actually affect the media industry itself. Thank you very much, Prof. Sam, for that introduction. So now let's move on to our third speaker, Ms. Sara Nattaya. Sara?
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Morning. I'll pass
Can you hear me?
Yes, a bit echoey, but I think we can hear you.
All right. I'm sorry, I keep disconnecting somehow or other.
All right. So 10 minutes for you, Sara. Over to you.
Yeah, I'd like to do a little bit more of an introduction about myself because I think I don't have a background like Professor in Datin Paduka since I'm the young blood amongst the panelists. MBits Digital is actually a fully licensed telecommunications and broadcasting company, and by the Ministry of Communications. So I'm the youngest player. Just like Telecom Malaysia, we have telco, meaning we've got mobile network, we've got fiber, we've also got a broadcasting platform. But the difference is the approach that we're applying to all these platforms. I hear both of you so clearly because this is really something that I really wanted to talk about today about the broadcasting platform. So if we remember what pre-pandemic was like, exactly like what Professor said, actually it just accelerated the process of Malaysians going towards a more digital lifestyle. If you look at Grab, they were there since like 2010. You've got iFlix that were also there, but unfortunately now iFlix is VTV, right, by Tencent Group. But the fact is the technology was already there. But somehow or other, the acceleration happened during the pandemic where the broadcasting or the platforms that people tend to opt for are social media platforms because that's the only platform that's available for free for people to access content, whatever the contents may be. But at
Oh, did Sara just dropped out? I think she just dropped out, but in the meantime, while we're waiting for her to come back, maybe I'd just like to also, yeah, Sara, you're back? Okay.
oh, no, 1 second.
Can technical spotlight her? Yep, okay.
The technological problem here, 1 second.
Sara, are you there? Okay, while we wait for Sara to. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So as I was saying before I got cut off, so sorry about that. Yes. So the acceleration of us going towards a more digital lifestyle happened during the pandemic. And yes, social media was the main medium or platforms that people use because it's free, right? But somehow or other, what drove a lot of people to use platforms like Netflix or even Disney Plus, giants like them are coming up with their own OTT platform, is the challenge for us as a Malaysian broadcaster. So I'm also part of MCMC's lab. We just had a session with even the chairman and Pemandu to improve on the Communications and Multimedia Act. The biggest issue was our broadcasters are still conventional. As Professor also said, we're talking about terrestrial TV. And I think Paduka also highlighted the fact that we're still talking about latency of maybe 10 seconds, right? When you watch football in Malaysia, the delay is so obvious that it's horrible for a lot of people. So just imagine we're still within that realm. We're still talking about, I can mention it here, like my TV, still terrestrial TV. Our broadcasters was not quick enough to adapt with the whole change of digital platform, right? So I've actually built a digital platform already before the pandemic. It's called GetPlay. It's a digital broadcasting platform, but unfortunately, the Fortunately and unfortunately, the pandemic sort of stopped us from doing a whole huge launch for more people or even Datin Paduka to know about it, right? But fortunately, despite the pandemic, I think a lot of people were still looking for local content. So we have about 100,000 users already on our Gateway platform. And what I realize is it's really the trend of content consumption is very, very different. Younger audiences now, their attention span, because of TikTok, you spend 20 the whole year with TikTok, and the attention span now is 15 seconds. So if you do a content for whatever the platform is, you've got 15 seconds to really attract them to want to watch your content, right? So imagine now content producers not only have to think about, oh, which platform do I go to? Do we have a digital broadcasting platform in Malaysia? Is broadcasting ready enough in Malaysia to go digital? So that's the first question I think a lot of young people have. Second is, when we produce content now, it has to be completely out of the box, because you've got, during the pandemic, Disney Plus, Netflix, they're huge giants. They've got $300 million to spend on producing contents. Then you have a content like Squid Games, right? Then now all the young people in the world, even Malaysia, talking about, oh, I want to do contents like Squid Games. Squid Games is interesting, but then there's so many issues around that, right? One is your broadcasting platform. One is censorship. That's another issue, right? Don't really have a clear guideline of what we can do. Can we show blood? Can we not show blood? Can we talk about religion? Can we not talk about religion? I think all this in a nutshell definitely is not really an issue for the students, I would say, that's within the media and communications industry, because that's an industry issue. But because I have my own platforms, I also have a production company that produces contents. And on the contrary of not looking for industry people, we're actually looking for a lot. I could barely even find an editor right now because my production, we do a lot of co-productions between Hong Kong, China, Korea, even the US. I've got this couple of productions coming up in the next few months. One is The Challenger, which is an American production that's going to be here based in Malaysia, and we're the team. So that's, again, a huge 90% local team that we're looking for. Similarly to Shark Tank, that's also another 90% local team. We've got a Hong Kong production with personalities like Chow Yun-Fat coming down, and that's also another 90% local team. So it's not really about looking for the team or the team doesn't have opportunities, but there is a great challenge, as what Datin Paduka mentioned about the new SOP. We have to take swab tests every 2 weeks and submit it to finance to make sure that everyone's clear of COVID. And as Datin Paduka also mentioned, the difference between pre-pandemic and post-pandemic is the fact that the SOP of whether or not there will be a hindrance in between, and every day is cost, right? But I would say, I think just in again, conclusion, the broadcasters are trying to change. I see that Astro and a few other broadcasters are trying to go digital. And they're also trying to produce and support more local contents. Personally, I work with GSC. If you know the cinema GSC, they're now also moving into OTT, and they have a channel on my platform called Gateway. So they have a new brand called GSC now, and they're actually going to invest in a lot of support local films. And because I just launched 2 months ago that we'll be producing 12 local films in a span of 24 months. Wow. And I know that it's like, far-fetched, but because it's for our own platform. So see, this is something very different, where we have our own platform, we have connectivity because we've got our own data plan, we've got our own internet services, we have our own broadcasting platform. So naturally, just like what Netflix does, what Disney Plus does, we have to invest in a lot of original contents. And because we're digital, we're not really, and we're also licensed by the Ministry of Communications, we're not really governed by LPF, I would say. But Datin Paduka would be able to share a little bit more, I think, in the next session, where we always do different cuts for the film. We do one for international distribution, we do one for local distribution. You cut out all the good parts, right? So yeah, I think broadcasting is definitely changing. right? It's no longer terrestrial. MCMC, as the Ministry of Communications, understand that, and they're trying to see how do they regulate broadcasters that are like OTT and like Netflix and Disney Plus and Amazon Prime, because they are producing contents, they're not governed by our censorship board, and they're also collecting a lot of money from our people, Malaysians, and they're not paying tax. And then you've got us who are governed by everything under the government, and then we have to abide to everything, and then we also have to pay tax. So this is something that the Ministry of Communications understand finally, and they're trying to fix that. But really, I think the whole point about today's conversation is about opportunity for the students to be able to find a job. I don't think that whatever that they're doing won't be able, or whatever that they're studying, post-pandemic. I mean, if you look at the 18th century, or even like in the 1990s, early 1990s, you've got SARS, you've got cholera, but we survived it, right? The only difference is the fact that when we have a pandemic now, we have social media. So that doesn't help, right? And the news about everything is a controversy, whether taking a vaccine is good, right? And then you've got separate views of yes, you should, no, you shouldn't take vaccine. And that is also a hindrance for us, because those that doesn't then will affect people like us, especially in our industry, right? And then you've got booster shots. You don't know whether news are real anymore. So there are so many growing issues, but again, industry issues, nothing to do with opportunities for students to get a job, right? And I think moving forward, post-pandemic, what we definitely have adapted to is the change, right? As what Datin Paduka and what we're doing here today. I really thought that this session was going to be live, and I was so excited for it. But of course, with the pandemic, we're adapting to the fact that, oh, okay lah, you know, we're doing it virtual. Of course, you don't really feel as much of it, but I guess that's what we're adapting to. So technology, as what Professor correctly said, is evolving. Yes, our government should focus more on investing into infrastructure. Right now, we don't really have great infrastructure for connectivity. And the worst part is if the broadcasting is going towards internet-based protocol platforms, then it's not a balance, isn't it? You don't have good connectivity, but yet you have to move forward to compete with the rest of the world. Globally, everyone's already moving digital. If you look at the UK, you've got BBC Player, that's an OTT platform. Well, America, you've got Disney Plus, started with Netflix, but Disney realized that, hey, I have to compete with someone like Netflix. So Disney Plus has it, Amazon Prime, you've got Hulu. So we have to, yeah, definitely infrastructurally, I hope too that the government would invest a little bit more, but definitely a brighter future for the younger generation, because I think by the time we are fully developed from the infrastructure point of view, I think Malaysia will be slightly open, I hope, you know, in terms of censorship, in terms of the types of creative contents that the current students can actually venture upon creating in the future. But definitely they have to challenge themselves a little bit more to create more exciting contents, but with integrity. I think content doesn't necessarily have to be controversial to gain traction. It just has to be creative with integrity and morale. To, you know, to really attract people and talk about it. And you can see now with Squid Games, it wasn't something that was really blasted to you like, oh, watch Squid Games, watch Squid Games. It wasn't. Content now is really a word of mouth. If professor says, oh, watch Downton Abbey, right? Then that people will say, oh, you must watch Downton Abbey. Everyone will be watching Downton Abbey because the fact that the traction is it's trending. So I think the challenge for content creators in the future would be to challenge themselves to think out of the box, but then again, still, you know, keep within integrity and morale, because we're still, you know, I always say in Malaysia, when you do contents, it should still be highlighting more of what we're, you know, very essential for, which is multicultural, multilingual. And that's why the 12 films that I'll be producing is all revolving around multilingual and multicultural and dialect films. We really need more dialect films. We need more Negeri Sembilan dialects. We need more Kelantanese dialects. We need Perakhian dialects. I mean, we should really look into dialect films. That's something that we should move forward on. But I think that's all for me. I mean, in conclusion, is technology is evolving, always evolving, right? It's always about adapting to that change. But creativity is something that would never change. You will always forever have to be creative, right? It's just that how do you be creative to evolve with the current audience, right? For example, like now post-pandemic, the current audience attention span are even shorter. Before the pre-pandemic, it was maybe about 30 seconds to attract people, even for a content, right? But now it's 15 seconds, and now it's getting even shorter. Commercials are going like 3 seconds, right? What can you do in 3 seconds, right? But yeah, I think challenge yourself to challenge more in terms of creativity. That would
Yeah.
be my end statement, lah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Very excited to. I can actually hear my voice.
Oh, can you?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually excited to listen to all this new content creation and supporting local contents coming in, and our own local OTT platforms, because I think this is the future. And Prof Moscow earlier on in his keynote this morning was highlighting the importance of us to decolonize our mental, in terms of our media content, in terms of our academic discussion and everything, and to be brave to come out with our own identity and to put it out there. But obviously the infrastructure should be strong, the environment, the media industry, policies and all that must be very supportive of this growth. And hopefully it can accelerate, like Prof Sam mentioned, accelerate our media and communication industry faster to the future. Thank you very much for a very wonderful introduction speech by all three of our panelists. We now move on to our second round of this session, which will be some discussion. I've actually prepared a few questions and that I have forwarded to all the panelists earlier on. And I just wanted to center our discussion more towards, the creation of future works. And we have a lot of our students listening to us this morning. We also have, in the crowd, media and communication educators all over Malaysia, and probably outside Malaysia as well, who's listening. So we are actually concerned with, what's going to happen to our graduates. What are the job opportunities, and what's the future like for them? So my first question would be, what are the what has the new norm of working, and how does this affect our future employment, especially for the media and communications field? Maybe, Paduka, would you like to start? Datin Paduka, you are on mute. Datin Paduka, you are on mute. Yes, sorry.
I know that it's even before COVID, right? Before the pandemic set in, there was already a problem of creating jobs and employment for university students. It was already happening before that. But when COVID came in, it amplified itself. You can see that parents are worried, and we ourselves are worried because the moment you cut down on project, you cut down on jobs, right? And I have to go back in 2018. 2018, I had proposed a project I wanted to do was a virtual creative school, and it has to do with storytelling skills, and I wanted kids who have could draw, artists, to be trained as graphic designers, and then they become editors, because these are areas that we need to train people in. And second, to train people in project financing and studio management, because these are courses that's not been taught in school, in universities. What I proposed for that project was to start training students from Form 5, not at university level. Because people are being, all these people, these kids are being introduced to social media, to internet at a very early age. So they need to be formed, to be molded as early as possible. So that was not happening. So that's 2018, because I was looking to the future. And this is before COVID. So now that COVID sets in, this is even more important now that we change the curriculum that you have at the university, you adapt to what's happened and increase exposure to students in fields that they are not exposed to. I'm saying this because I do a lot of workshop for young people in different states. Whenever I go and shoot, I would do a workshop, mostly in Seremban, Negeri Sembilan, in Kota Baru. And there are many students, Form 5 dropout, who wanted to be in the creative industry. And the question I asked them was, why you want, kenapa nak masuk dalam bidang ni? Because they feel that they have a story to tell that might make them into storytellers for films. You know, that's something that, and these are Form 5 kids. So that's why I thought that like Sara said just now, you want to hear people of different dialect, yeah, Negeri, Kelantan, Kedah. So you must have people who are able to tell their stories, able to talk about their lives from the different states in their own language. Not when you want to teach them, you go to university, everybody wants to make Hollywood film, Bollywood film. You want to do Superman story, Marvel story. You know, that's not your story. You want young people to talk about their stories, themselves, their background, their parents, their state, their food, their culture. That's the most important thing. And I think that that's not being taught enough in universities. But now that things have changed, you start teaching them in school, in Form 5, even earlier if you want to, but yes, start from there. Then I think you can actually plan the employment of these people, the young people, the graduates coming out, because you have no choice. You are being forced now to change and teach more using technology, which are not being taught. Okay, because I can say this because when I'm looking for graphic artists, 2D, 3D artists, I can't find them. As Sara said just now, you can't find these people. So you end up having to train them. Look for people who can draw and you train them. Look for people who understand shots, camera shots, continuity, and train them as editors. That's what we're doing actually. When you say shot of editors, I understand. And then we train them. So during COVID, people are actually training themselves using self-kit or whatever that you have on the internet to become editors. But so is this taken as an opportunity by universities, by colleges to mold their students to go that way? I don't know. When I suggested that in 2018 that we have this virtual school, I know one university was afraid. They say, hey, you might take all the students away. Oh, seronok lah diorang, you know, they learn from home, tak payah pergi college. I said, that's the whole idea. You want people to have access to education, to the arts, to talent creation from all over the country, from all over the world, not just in UITM, UKM, and all that, you know. So I am looking towards that. And that's why I think that what I want to say today is for colleges to revamp whatever they're teaching and add in very quickly the new creative technology that is needed for people to adapt to what is happening right now. I mean, we are talking about like, yeah, it's great if we can have a in-person kind of forum, right, webinar, but you have to do it virtual. But even virtual, I would love to be able to show some footages, some visuals of what I'm saying, and I can't right now because it's limited, right? So those are things that would be the future. Like if I talk, I press a button, I can show my reels. Okay, here's what I mean here, you know, and I can't do that. So I like bila alah tak boleh tunjuk, okay lah tak apa, just cakap aja. So you know, like when we talk about remote shooting, actually like if we are able to control that, to understand that, every state can build their own remote shooting teams. So that's job creation, you know, and students who are weavers, who are with digital technology, they have jobs, because every state can have their own remote team. I am sitting here and I said, I want that scene to be shot in Malacca. You have your remote team there, please set it up and get it done for me. I will direct from here.
Yeah.
You know, these are new job creation, and you need to teach people how you can go about it, how you can achieve that.
Yeah. And it's very interesting, I think, Paduka, when you mentioned that, job creation in different states, not just centralized in the
Yes.
Klang Valley, whereby, this also relates back to opportunities for entrepreneurship, where, students actually, I can see here at the university, there are trends to teach or to encourage our students to become more entrepreneurial. And looking at business and creating their own businesses, because I think a lot of our operations are becoming decentralized. People are getting smaller jobs, but they're more focused on what they do. Prof, would you like to come in and talk about probably how media educators, media communication educators, or curriculum could adapt to help prepare our students for the for this future new of work?
Pick up from Datin Paduka's argument, I think it's high time. I don't know how much has changed since my time as a student in the 70s, whether the curriculum have changed over the last 30, 40 years. Right? We have undergone all the changes in the information technology, now in the digital technology. I remember when I was researching the faculty and the department, we encourage, we work with the ICT, the computer science faculty, to integrate some of the courses into communication courses, because we think that communication students need to embrace technology at that time. But slowly, it doesn't pick up, but it regress rather than moving into embracing this technology. I think with what's happening during this pandemic, need us to realize again, we need to integrate more than communication or media curriculum into the communication schools, because what's happening in the industry is integration of all things. So we sort of thinking that if you are majoring in broadcasting, you must be a producer. That was the level RTM put it up. If you have a university degree, you become producer. So we train students to become producer, but now students can be creative content creator and establish their YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So the demand, the market itself, the industry itself have changed. You have social media, you have all this OTT, beside the traditional media, so things have changed. And the audience themselves have changed. Audience have reallocate their media consumption pattern differently. Now, myself, I like to watch YouTube now more than watching the terrestrial TV. I'm watching Netflix. I would go for this Turkish historical background, Osman, So that kind of movie really interests me. So there's a lot of reallocation of media consumption among the audience. So all this needs changes into the curriculum. We cannot be producing RTM producer at grade 41. No, that's the standard. So now you have to break up that basic production, then channel specialization in different fields. And what more, it's not the production. The production can be done, I think, through experience, and you can learn. But then the creative side, the content creator, even though it's a 5 minutes or 10 minutes YouTube channel, you need to be creative. But when I was watching this independent film producer on Netflix or what, local films, they have different themes, totally different themes from this cinta love story, like drama type, So it's refreshing to watch this kind of content coming from the new filmmakers. And so because the content is attractive, and it challenges your so-called intellectual kind of thinking, then you already predict the love story will end like this, and then the sequence will be like this. You don't have to wait 2 hours to make a conclusion. So these are the things I think the university have to sit down, and not only for production in broadcasting, for journalism, for advertising, advertising investment in terrestrial TV going down, but in other platforms they are increasing, So these are kind of thing. Previously, again, just like broadcasting, the what you call the training of advertising among advertising students is to become what you call accounts executive, to service the what you call the organization, the advertisers. That's it. So now maybe a different kind of advertising graduates you need to produce. So there's a lot, I think, not only UKM, but the whole of education institutions in Malaysia need to rethink. Because we are using this hand-me-down kind of knowledge, I teach my student the way my lecturer taught me, so until 4 generations of lecturer, you still maintain the same curriculum after 30 or to 40 years. And well, the environment is changing. So it's either you are going to be dead later on, there's no demand for you for your curriculum, for your institutions, or the industry is going to fade out. But I don't think the industry is going to fade out. The industry is very dynamic. The industry is dynamic. What Sara is doing is something that people didn't see is coming. But when I was told that there's streaming TV way back in the 90s or early 90s, I said, really? You can watch TV without this aerial? There's no way. Yeah. But it's happening now. That's the way people are going into, because you watch when you are ready to watch. Then you absorb everything what you watch because you have the time to watch. You know how much time you need to spend. So the whole environment, media environment have changed, but the curriculum have not changed that much lah. I think there's changes along the way, but not holistically, being reviewed to match what's coming, what's present, what's coming. And moreover, in the new environment, people have been conditioned with new kind of behavior, new tastes within these 2 years, and some of this behavior, new values, new tastes of media consumption will remain, and this will be the beginning for a new what do you call area that need to be so-called exploited by the industry to keep the industry moving and advance into more profitable, and therefore can hire more students. So students also need to be, I think one thing is to be multitasking, because you need to do some of the work, because if we allow this remote kind of working situation, a journalist need to produce, edit kind of their story before they just look on the digital platform for their main studio to broadcast. So you need kind of multitasking kind of students and that you produce later on. So you need to review holistically and bring in the industry people, so that you can know what's happening out there. So the premise, objective of the curriculum that we developed way back in the 80s, 90s might not be totally relevant, but some will be academically, yes, there are some concepts that you need to know, but in terms of practical, since we are asked to make as practical as possible so that graduates can fit into the job market, although we don't agree to do to be a training center for the industry, but we need to meet halfway. There's some practical issues and some conceptual issues, so that students after several number of years they can still expand, because they can still broaden their horizon, because their basic academic knowledge there.
Yeah.
If you give them 100% practical, once is after a few years in the industry, when things change, technology change, they cannot cope up with the industry. They need new skills. But basically, you need new skills with the new curriculum. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Yes, I do agree. I think the curriculum has to change a lot, but also the delivery, how we as academic lecturers, try to encourage our students to be more creative thinkers, not just, people who can manage or use the technology, but the ones that produces creative content. And I am just very mindful of the time right now, and I know there's a lot of questions. I just want to mention here that UKM, we are actually trying to collaborate as well with Sara with MBits. She has also actually came and visited the studio, and she has very interesting projects for the students. So hopefully all the students will be prepared for that. You guys might be absorbed to a few of her projects. But yeah, I just wanted to open the floor if any of you have any questions. I know there are many questions. If I could first pick up on the ones in the chat box. Yeah, actually a few questions for Datin Paduka. Datin Paduka, if you can answer, let me just how to make Malaysian films. Sorry, okay, let me just make sure that okay, Ashraf Isra says that does short films or any videos from YouTube could disrupt the Malay films because YouTube can increase more creative people in making more creative films. I think this one is also quite related to the second question. How to make Malaysian films and dramas compete with other countries' films, like Indonesia, where they create more films about patriotism. Because more films, drama series are quite predictable and cliche. Okay, maybe Datin Paduka, would you like to?
I'm sorry, you have to repeat that because there's a lot of feedback. I couldn't hear you clearly just now.
Yeah, sorry, let me just repeat that. So Ashraf Isha asked, the short films or any videos from YouTube could disrupt the Malay films, the local films right now, because YouTube can increase more creative people in making more, creative content. And another question asked about how do we want to make Malaysian films and dramas compete with other countries? You see from Indonesia, they create films about patriotism and whatnot, but in Malaysia, dramas are quite predictable and cliche. Would you like to comment on that, Datin Paduka?
Okay, the first one, but whether short films will disrupt movie industry, it will not. But the movie industry at the moment is disrupted by COVID because the cinemas cannot open 100%. Okay, that's a main thing at the moment. So there are many big films that people are waiting for. They can't go into home cinema like Astro because they need the big screen. So that is being affected. But whether short film, YouTube, and not going to affect Malay films, it won't, because watching on a small screen is like very much different than watching anything on a big screen. And big screen is like you just leave everything outside your cinema and just go in there and enjoy that whole thing, suspend your disbelief. So it's a different atmosphere altogether. But what can be something that will take away audience to be selective is because there are so many OTT channels at the moment. You've got Netflix. We've been watching Netflix and all these channels from before, but it amplified its existence in our lives during COVID. And so you realize there's a lot of choice, there's a lot of stories that you can see that's different. But I think Malaysian audience wants to see something that is local, that is enjoyable and believable. So everything falls on the story. Whether it's a short film, whether it's a feature film, it is the story that is going to hold you together. So as you said, drama cinta-cinta, you already know cinta ni ending dia cinta dia akan kahwin or dia akan lose the boyfriend, broken hearted, or mak mentua dia curse dia, itu yang you can see on TV. But you must remember that you don't like it. Can you imagine that people in the kampung actually get glued to TV when they see something like that? They enjoy it. They don't enjoy what you like.
Yeah.
So everybody has a right to oxygen lah, basically, right? So if
Mhm.
they like that, so they have a right to watch something like that. But you want something else, it's you that should make a difference. As you just now, Sara said that, people attention span is only 15 minutes, right?
Second.
So
Second.
curriculum, a university, you must adapt, and we ourselves in the industry are adapting. Like we used to we have a structure. A story has a structure. Any story, pendek ke, 5 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 hours, it has its own structure. So that must be taught. Structure, you cannot, it's not a natural talent that you have. Structure is a format you have to be taught. And now, because of the short attention span, writers now have to look at every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, what happened to the story. Is it enough? Is it gripping enough for the audience? So there's a change. 10 minutes, what is the change there that will grip them? Next 10 minutes, what's the change? So now we are writing that way now. So, because we have to adapt. We know the attention span is a big thing. And so if you are writing a short story of even 20 minutes, the structure remains the same. What grabs the audience the first 5 minutes, the next 5 minutes, the next 5 minutes? That is something that you have to teach your students. They must be taught that, right? And it's easy to be able to write when you write about something that is close to you. Don't write about Superman. Don't write about Hulk or whatever, or the battle in somewhere that's done by the Americans. You know better when you write about things that you know yourself. I mean, I love hantu story. That's because I come from a family who enjoys a lot of this folklore. I listen to it when I was small. So, Harimau Jadian, I love those stories. So I write about them because I like them. I enjoy them. So it's something that when your students write, they must be taught to write what is close to them. Then they can really have a control of it. Because everything is about the story, everything.
Thank you very much, Datin Paduka. Sara, do you want to interject and add
I
on?
want to add on to that, actually. A lot of people assume there's a misconception about creating content in Malaysia, and most of them will be directed to the government. But actually, the broadcasters have a great responsibility of whatever the contents that are created. And every broadcaster have their own types of contents that they want to produce. And they have a slate, right? I think I'm sure you're familiar, but you do mostly films, right? All this drama, cliche is something that I always talk about. I really hate it so much. But unfortunately, due to the restrictions, most of the broadcasters that are here are government linked or government related. So you don't see a lot of freedom in creating a lot of content. So they create whatever that's safe. But unfortunately, despite being safe, as what Datin Paduka mentioned, we don't have dialect contents or essential cultural contents that are exciting, right? As what Prof said, I've watched a Turkish film and all that, but it's really not the government, it's really up to the broadcasters, but really the broadcasters are not doing a great job. Another thing that I want to talk about is entrepreneurship. Creativity is great, but you also have to have some form of business sense. A lot of people are talking about, oh, let's put the content on YouTube. But the problem is you don't realize when you put your content on YouTube, it devalues your content so much that it's not valuable to broadcast it or air it in the cinemas, right? So that's why normally people use YouTube or social media platforms to promote their contents, but they don't put their contents onto YouTube because it's still deemed as a UGC, a user-generated content platform, right? So that means it's an open platform. All you do is you hope and wish that you can do lots of marketing for that particular content that you put up, and then you can generate some form of income from the advertising, but that's still not distributing to channels or syndication like cinemas, or because your content can be multiple waves. You can do, the first wave would be to the cinemas, the second wave could be to your local broadcasters, the third wave would be your OTT platform. So that's all content of monetization that you have to think about as well as content creator. Really, yeah. But Professor, a lot of people are asking about the very controversial books that I have on top. I put a feminist revolution beside a Hitler. So that's a very interesting, a few of them noticed and then they're just asking why am I doing that. Actually, I studied history, I did English history, I had nothing to do with the production background at all. Right? I learned that the hard way. I took a short course at London Film Academy. But I realized that producing content is not just about producing content, creating content without a message. A message is very, very important. So what we mean by message is what are you propagating or the propaganda message that you're putting into your context. So if you watch Squid Games, right, we don't speak the language, but based on what I've researched, every single part of the conversation in Squid Games, every single setup in Squid Games is showing the society of Korea right now, in terms of jobs, in terms of the hierarchy of staffs, or the organization. So everything is very relatable to current society. So why do I have feminist revolution beside Hitler? Is because I studied history, I learned a lot from it. And if you look at how during that time, with the lack of medium of broadcasting, they only used radio frequency at that time. But how did they manage to bring that message across so strongly that people all listened to what Hitler was saying? So that's why what I'm trying to say is propaganda or message in your contents is very important. So the Signal is actually the last Nazi magazine. And I didn't actually even know that Nazi had a magazine, but they actually burned all the other books so that people didn't read. So there was no medium of information, no media of communication, except for whatever the Nazi would give you from the magazines. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to really look at. The feminist revolution is also another form of media communication, how the women's suffragettes came about in the UK. It's all through media and communications and messaging in posters, radio frequencies, and now radio transmissions, and now we're going into platforms like social media within 15 seconds and 3 seconds. So that's what I wanted you guys to think about.
Thank you very much, Sara.
Yeah.
I can still hear myself. Okay, Sara, can you see? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much, Sara, for that. And I'm just being mindful of the time because we only have until 11:45. We have another keynote session after this. There are some questions in the chat box, and I would really appreciate if the panelists could stay on the Zoom, and try and answer the questions on the chat box. So audiences, if you still have any questions for the panelists, please just drop in the chat box, and hopefully Prof, Datin, Paduka, Shuhaimi, as well as Sara could address it there in the chat box by answering my in the chat box. I would like to say thank you very much to all three panelists who are here today. Time is always jealous of us. We don't always get enough time to discuss, but it is a very fruitful conversations that we have. If I could summarize, media and communication industry has changed a lot, has accelerated, very quickly because of the pandemic. And as a result of that, we as the media communication, futures, the students, the lecturers who are preparing the students to be in the industry should also adapt and change as well in terms of our curriculum, in terms of our delivery methods. The most important thing is trying to meet halfway with the technology as well as being creative content producers, and let's all try to create more local contents and to be the champions of our own our own culture in Malaysia by producing and by putting our contents out there. And with OTT and digital platforms, we would be able to reach more and at the global market. So this is definitely an opportunity and exciting future for all of you, our media and communication students. Thank you very much Prof. Sam, Datin Paduka, who are also very involved in, with mention. I just like to highlight here shortly that both of them are actually, we have anugerah, we have special awards for anugerah Datin Paduka Shuhaimi Bapa for best undergraduate students, and Prof. Sam anugerah Samsudin Rahim for the best PhD students. So they have generously contributed a fund for this. We would like to thank you and like to highlight that. And Sara, you're just beginning a journey with us with mention, and I would love to see more collaboration with MBits, with our students, to open more opportunities for experiences in local content production, as well as digital technology. So thank you very much, all three panelists today. I would like to pass on to the MC. I think we have a photo session in before we end, before we move to the next session. I'd like to pass back to the MC, Marika and Kazaya. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you to all the panelists, Emeritus Professor Dr. Samsudin Abdul Rahim, Datin Paduka Shuhaimi Baba, Ms. Sara, Nattaya, Azmi, and Associate Professor Dr. Mirza, Wati, Mohamad, for such a wonderful discussion.
Once again, we would like to take a few photographs with all panelists as well as all attendees as a token of remembrance. We would be glad if all participants could turn on your cameras for a few moments. Technical team, please be on standby as we will be taking a few photographs. Please hold your smiles for us, and we will get this photo shoot done. A few moments. All right, hold your smiles, technical team. A little bit more to go. All right, I think we are good to go. Thank you very much. Once again, I would like to say to Emeritus Professor Dr. Samsudin Abdul Rahim, Datin Paduka Shuhaimi Baba, Ms. Sara, Nattaya, Azmi, and Associate Professor Dr. Mirza for the discussion earlier. It is now time for our second keynote speech session.